Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Robert Young in an episode of Father Knows Best that aired the day after Valentine's Day, but it was a Valentine's Day show from 71 years ago, February 15th, 1951, Orchids for a Lady. And we thank you for joining us on this Sure Happy It's Tuesday, 15th day of February, 46th day of the year, 319 days remaining until we get to 2023. President Rutherford B. Hayes signed a bill allowing female attorneys to argue cases before the Supreme Court in 1879. In 1898, the USS Maine exploded and sunk in Havana Harbor in Cuba. 260 were killed, and this led the U.S. to declare war on Spain. The first teddy bear introduced in America on this date in 1903 by Morris Micdom and his wife Rose. In Miami on this date in 1933, Giuseppe Zangara tried to assassinate President Roosevelt, but instead shot Chicago Mayor Anton L. Cermak. Cermak would die of his wounds on March 6th. In 1941, the Duke Ellington Orchestra recorded Take the A-Train. ENIAC, the first general-purpose electronic computer, was unveiled at the University of Pennsylvania in 1946. In 1953, 17-year-old Tenley Albright became the first American to win the World Figure Skating Championship. A new red and white maple leaf design adopted as the Canadian flag on this date in 1965, replacing the old Canadian red ensign banner. Kevin Mitnick arrested by the FBI on this date in 1995 and charged with breaking into some of the U.S.'s most secure computer systems. A mortar attack on the U.S. Embassy in Athens, Greece on this date in 1996. And it was in 1998, Dale Earnhardt won the Daytona 500 after 20 years of disappointment. Sadly, in 2004, Dale Earnhardt Jr. would win the Daytona 500 6 years to the day when his father won his only Daytona 500. Among those passing away on this date in history, Nat King Cole, Wally Cox, no relation, Ethel Merman, Tommy Rettig, who played Timmy in the Lassie TV shows, the early ones, also McLean Stevenson passing away on this date, wrestler Louis Spicolli, journalist Howard K. Smith, and Vanity. You remember her from her work with Prince. This is the birth date of feminist suffragette Susan B. Anthony, actor John Barrymore of the Barrymore clan, actor Cesar Romero, who did so much A and B movie work, but is probably best remembered to my generation for his work in Batman, as he was the Joker in the 60s Batman shows. Actor Kevin McCarthy born on this date, as was Mary Jane Croft, who did a lot of radio work, and I was not aware of how much radio work she did, especially with our Miss Brooks. She was Miss Enright, the other person going against Miss Brooks, seeking the affections of Mr. Boynton. Also born on this date, country singer Hank Lachlan, actor-comedian Harvey Korman, and God, we miss his humor. The way he played off Tim Conway so well, it was just a delight. Also, Rusty Hamer, remember him from the Danny Thomas Show? He was the son in that. And actor-comedian Chris Farley, all born on this date in history. Melissa Manchester, don't cry out loud. Melissa Manchester, 71 years old today. British actress Jane Seymour, also turning 71. The creator of The Simpsons, Matt Groening, is 68. Canadian musician Jane Child, 55 years old today. I won't sing. Okay? I'll behave. Lois Griffin from Family Guy, Alex Bornstein. She is 51 years of age today. From 24, Sarah Winter, 49 years of age. And from Glee, Amber Riley. Mercedes is 36 years of age today. Those just a few of the people who celebrate the 15th day of February is their birthday, and if this happens to be your birthday,
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
And we will go back to the original Father Knows Best, the one that was actually funny before the television show. The Robert Young still starring in it from 71 years ago, February 15th, 1951, Orchid for a Lady. I'm Wyatt Cox. Thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.
Here's some great news. If you missed the deadline to sign up for health insurance, or if you just have a plan you're not happy with, you still have a choice. It's called Medi-Share. There are hundreds of thousands of members, and they love it. Medi-Share has a 98% customer satisfaction rating, and this is obviously huge. The typical family saves around $6,000 a year switching to Medi-Share. Find out more. They're great to talk to. 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE.
The Overstock sale continues at MyPillow.com. Deep discounts on Giza Dream Sheets, MyPillow original pillows, the My Slippers, half price. I love mine. And with every order you make by going to MyPillow.com/radio specials, you'll get a free copy of Mike Lindell's book, What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO. MyPillow.com/radio specials, promo code USA. We have talked before here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox about how the radio show version of Father Knows Best was so much different than the television version. And usually, radio shows just moved over to TV, lock, stock, and barrel. Well, this one didn't. And as you listen, you will notice, if you've seen the TV show, you'll notice that the radio show's a lot different. Betty, a boy-crazy teenage girl, not as crazy as the Betty on television. Bud, a much more dense character and a much more different character. Bud just was not as bright as the television show. And Kathy, the littlest, mostly a source of whiny irritation. She complains about her status in the family. And yet, she also, even though she was Hawk on her own allowance, it would always be that Kathy and Bud would borrow money from her. She always seemed to have it. In the book in the magazine Films of the Golden Age, in the fall 2015 edition, Robert Young talked about the radio show, saying, I never quite liked it because it had to have laughs, and I wanted a warm relationship show. When we moved to TV, I suggested an entirely new cast and a different perspective. And see, radio, even in its most modern era, was not into warm relationship family shows. And so Father Knows Best achieved that in television, even though it didn't in radio. I don't know any radio shows apart from some soap operas which had that kind of appeal. Anyway, let's get to Father Knows Best, the Valentine's Day show from February 15th, 1951, 71 years ago today.
Mother, is Maxwell House really the only coffee in the world?
Well, your father says so, and your father knows best.
Yes, it's Father Knows Best, transcribed in Hollywood, starring Robert Young as father. A half-hour visit with your neighbors, the Andersons, brought to you by America's favorite coffee, Maxwell House. The coffee that's always good to the last drop. Come, let us bid the morn awake. Sad winter now declines, and every bird doth choose a mate. Today's St. Valentine's. Ah, yes, the day of love and lovers, St. Valentine's Day. It was quite an event in Springfield this year, especially in a certain white frame house on Maple Street. There, as usual, the day contained its normal quota of confusion. And there, also as usual, it all began with breakfast, like this.
But are you sure your father didn't go back to bed?
Yes, ma'am. He was almost finished shaving.
I don't know. Every time I plan anything special for breakfast...
Mommy, is 15 Valentines alive?
Well?
Who got 15 Valentines? I'm going to.
How do you know?
Because I've got 75 cents and I'm going to buy them.
Darling, you don't buy Valentines for yourself.
You don't? Of course not. I'm going to.
Kathy.
I'm going to get more Valentines than any girl in my whole class.
Of all the girls I ever see, the one I love the best is me.
Then Shakespeare rolled over and died.
Never mind, Betty.
I ever see. What grammar?
Well, it's poetry. Didn't you ever hear of poetic license?
Good grief, do you need a license for that now?
Good morning, Daddy.
Good morning,
Ah,
Daddy.
the gay young Anderson. Bright-eyed and cheerful.
Good morning, Jim.
Hello, honey. Getting ready to sally forth into the world for another day of popovers.
If they aren't burnt to a crisp.
Popovers? Well, why, we haven't had those for breakfast since... Wait a minute. How come popovers on Wednesday?
Is there any law that says we can't?
No, but is it somebody's birthday?
Father, do you mean to say...
All right, Betty, just eat your breakfast.
But if he doesn't...
I said eat your breakfast.
Jumping creepers.
Our anniversary's in April. Your birthday's in October.
Jim, will you please eat your popovers before they get cold?
I have eaten my last forkful until somebody tells me what today is.
It's February 14th.
Well, that's more like it. May I have my coffee, please?
Mother, he still doesn't know.
Of course he does, dear. He's just teasing you. Here you are, Jim.
Thank you, my love. Popovers and coffee. What a wonderful way to start off so auspicious a day as... February 14th.
Dad.
The sun is shining, the snow is glistening, the icicles are icicling.
Dad.
The coffee is bubbling, the popovers are popping.
Dad.
I seem to hear the strangest noises.
Dad.
All right, Bud, it's St. Valentine's Day. Now, what do you want?
It's St. Valentine's Day.
Thank you, H.V. Kaltenborn Jr.
Well, I just wanted to tell you.
Bud forgot to say you're welcome.
Never mind, dear.
But Daddy said thank you and Bud didn't say...
Drink your milk, Kathleen.
Why do you have to say you're welcome when you're 9 and when you're 15?
You heard your mother, Kathy. Drink your milk and stop arguing.
Gee whiz. Everybody has somebody and all I have is milk. Father.
Betty, with all the fuss you've been making around here about the sweetheart ball tonight, how could anybody in his right mind not know what the day was?
You mean you knew?
Of course I knew.
Well, if people know what a day is, they generally do something about it.
Betty, I wish you'd just eat your breakfast.
Wait a minute, honey. What's this all about?
It isn't anything, really, Jim.
Mr. Davis is giving Mrs. Davis an orchid for a Valentine, that's all. She told Mommy this morning.
Well?
When she came over to borrow an egg. And Mr. Phillips is giving one to Mrs. Phillips.
He's giving her an egg?
He's giving her an orchid, a big purple orchid.
And so's Mr. Smith.
That's ridiculous. Why would Mr. Smith want to give an orchid to Mrs. Phillips?
Maybe he likes her.
You better have a better reason than that.
Jim, you're getting the children all confused.
I am. I was sitting here very quietly watching the popovers popping over.
Mother got up an hour earlier this morning just to make a special breakfast for you.
She didn't have to do that. I'd have been perfectly happy with...
Just because it's St. Valentine's Day.
Is that right, honey?
It isn't anything, dear. I just thought you'd like popovers for a change.
Well, thank you, Margaret. I'm very grateful.
Then why don't you buy her an orchid?
Kathy.
Well, that's what everybody means. Why don't they say it?
Jim, I want you to know I had nothing to do with this.
I know that, honey, but...
Why, it's been so long since I've had an orchid, I wouldn't know what to do with this.
Just a minute. It hasn't been that long. You had an orchid? Well, it wasn't very long ago.
When Kathy was born.
All right, that's only 9 years. Besides, why the big celebration? St. Valentine's Day is for kids.
Excuse me.
Where are you going?
I have to look for my fountain pen.
But don't you think you ought to finish your breakfast first?
Well, I couldn't eat another thing, Mother. I'm full.
I don't know what's gotten into that girl. She doesn't eat enough to keep a bird alive.
That isn't what Billy Smith says.
Never mind, Kathy.
He says she eats like a horse.
Kathy?
I drank my milk.
Well, drink Betty's.
Gee whiz.
Margaret, you know I love you. And if I knew how to make popovers, I'd get up early and make them for you.
Bud, I can't find my pen.
But there's no reason why a couple of grown
Just
people...
a moment, dear. Bud, Betty can't find her pen. Why don't you go in and help her look for it?
Why do I always
Bud,
have to...
stop arguing and do as you're told.
Holy cow. Anything that gets lost around here, I have to find.
It isn't a question of the orchid, honey. It's the principle of the thing.
If I lose anything, nobody helps me find it. You'd think I was a seeing-eye boy or something.
Psst, I'm in here.
What's the big idea, Betty? I don't even know what your pen... Hey, wait a minute.
Bud, stop making so much noise.
You've got the pen right in your hand.
I know it.
Well, then why did I
Will
have
you
to...
stop shouting? We've got to do something about the orchid.
What orchid?
The one Mother isn't going to get.
Look, Betty, if you don't want to make sense...
Well, you heard Father. He isn't going to buy one.
How do you know?
He practically said so.
Well?
Do you want your mother to be the only woman in the neighborhood without an orchid?
What's the difference?
There's a lot of difference. And if Father won't buy it, we'll have to.
You're crazy. They cost $7.50.
I know, but... I don't have to have my hair fixed for the sweetheart ball.
You said you did.
Well, I don't. So, I've got $5. How much have you got?
Oh, now, wait a minute, Betty. I've been saving up for months.
How much?
But I have to buy Valentine presents for 5 girls.
Bud, how much?
Well, $1.75.
That still isn't enough.
It's all I've got. And if you think I'm going to go out and borrow 75 cents like I did last time...
75 cents.
Kathy!
What are you kids doing out there?
We have to talk to Kathy. I'll be right in.
You better make it snappy or you'll all be late for school.
It'll only take a minute, Father.
What if she won't give it to us?
She'll give it to us or else. I don't know where your pen is, Betty. Never mind the pen.
Where's your money?
I'm not going to tell you, because if I tell you... Kathy, we've got to have 75 cents. I don't care. It's my money, and I'm going to buy Valentine's, and you don't have any right. Kathy, this is an emergency. It is? It certainly is. What's an emergency?
An emergency means that you have to give us 75 cents.
Well, I won't. Kathy, I'm giving $5 and Bud's giving $1.75.
Hold it, Dad's coming.
But you didn't tell me. We'll tell you outside. Come on, Bud.
Okay, hiya, Dad.
Look, I don't know what you kids are cooking up.
We aren't cooking anything up, Father. They say I have to... Goodbye, Father.
Oh, we have to hurry up or we'll be late.
But I want to tell... Grab her coat, Bud. We'll put it on outside.
Okay.
Betty, why don't you...
We'll see you later, Father.
Come on, Kathy.
Well, stop pulling me. Why do you always have to pull me?
So long, Dad.
Bye now.
I don't know. They get worse every day.
Jim, Ed Davis is here.
Oh, I'll be right in. The bigger they get, the more trouble they are.
Hiya, Jim.
Oh, hello, Ed. What's up?
Oh, Ethel wanted me to bring back the egg she borrowed from Margaret.
Isn't that silly?
What's the big rush? Well, now she wants a cup of sugar.
Jim, while you and Ed settle the affairs of the world, I'll take the sugar over to Ethel.
Oh, Margaret, I'll take it over.
Put your coat on, honey.
It'll only take me a minute.
Hey, wait a minute, Margaret.
Won't do any good, Ed. She's gone.
Women. Has Margaret heard about the orchid?
Oh, yes. I was given a full treatment this morning.
Never heard anything so cockeyed in my life. One dizzy character orders an orchid for his wife, and the whole neighborhood has to go for broke.
What do you mean?
Lucille Hathaway was talking to Joe the florist, and this guy calls up and orders an orchid. A $7.50 orchid.
What guy?
Who knows? But Joe told Lucille, and she told Elizabeth Smith, and that's all it took. Every husband on the street is getting hooked for an orchid. Not everybody. Everybody. Well, gosh, Ed, boy, would I like to meet the character who started this.
You got yours yet?
I I better go call the florist right now. Well, I was just talking to Sam Woody, and he says Joe only has 2 or 3 orchids left. I'm going down and get one of them now. You want to come along? No, I think I'll just call him. Well, I wouldn't take any chances. You'd better come up with an orchid or you're a dead duck. Okay, Ed. I'll take care of it right away. And thanks for the tip. Glad to help, Jim. You know how it is. Husbands have to stick together. Or get stuck together. Why does everybody have to buy an orchid? Husbands. They're a bunch of sheep, that's what they are. Leave it to them to find a way to get everything... Hello, Joe? So this is Jim Anderson. Fine, thanks. Yes, I know. Look, Joe, I know, Ed Davis just told me. But look, Joe, if anybody wants to know who bought the first orchid, for crying out loud, don't tell them it was me.
Although Father Knows Best on TV bounced back and forth between CBS and NBC for its 6-year run, Father Knows Best on the radio stayed put from August of 1949, until March of 1954. And there's more information about Father Knows Best. Ted at RadioMemories.com has a bunch of Father Knows Best programs. February 15th, 1951, Father Knows Best on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 71 years ago next.
Oh, come on, I hate you. You have no right to speak to me. You're stupid, you're evil. You believe in your God, guns and gold. You shouldn't have the right to vote. We must fix this disgusting country now. We want socialism now.
Whoa there, little fella. Our U.S. Constitution protects your right to say these things, even if they are drivel.
Our founders believed in our inalienable rights granted by God, not some mafia. Our Bill of Rights protects your personal freedoms, your absolute right to speak to others, whether loving and kind or hateful and stupid.
Utopia doesn't exist. It only destroys. Millions of innocents slaughtered by the communists in Cambodia, China, and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
And millions of people were gassed by Hitler's National Socialist Party.
Where do you stand? Help us save the Constitution and restore our American dream. Go to SaveMyFreedom.com. That's SaveMyFreedom.com.
Brought to you by the American Media Council.
Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We're listening to an episode of Father Knows Best, starring Robert Young, from Thursday, February 15th, 1951. In the newspapers of that Thursday, 71 years ago, these were some of the headlines. The communist offensive in Central Korea ground to a bloody halt, and the U.S. 8th Army announced that 10,288 Reds were killed or wounded in yesterday's fighting. Another 365 Reds were captured. Meanwhile, the 1st North Korean Regiment destroyed yesterday, trapped and destroyed by alert U.S. soldiers from colonels to cooks who turned ambush into annihilation. United Nations naval vessels shelled Gyeongsang on the northeastern Korean coast, 65 miles south of Russia's Siberian border. The light cruiser USS Manchester, an Australian destroyer, and several U.S. destroyers hit Gyeongsang and Sinpo, about 135 air miles to the southwest. The Senate Armed Services Committee voted unanimously yesterday to draft 18-year-olds for 26 months service, but stipulated that no draftees, regardless of age, could be sent overseas without 4 months basic training. Local draft boards would have to exhaust their supply of eligible older men before inducting 18-year-olds. The bill would also order draft boards to call up as many 4Fs as possible for limited service, and would wipe out present exemptions for childless husbands and other men with only one dependent. Veterans still would be draft-proof. The government yesterday ordered 50% cash down payments on a vast range of non-residential construction in a new credit tightening move to combat inflation. Simultaneously, the administration threw out a broad hint it will soon attempt to stabilize food prices. Eric Johnson, the Economic Stabilization Director, told the House Ways and Means Committee that legislation will be submitted to Congress to equalize and stabilize farm prices and industrial wages. Johnson's disclosure capped a series of protests from labor leaders, housewives, and others against soaring food prices. The House Ways and Means Committee decided yesterday to review the entire tax problem before voting any increases, a move which Republicans said rules out any quickie tax boost. The committee action was an apparent rebuff to the administration. Secretary of the Treasury Snyder had urged a fast $10 billion tax boost, followed by a second bite increase of perhaps $6.5 billion later in the year. Frank Erickson, who headed a $12.5 million bookie empire, fought in the courts yesterday to be allowed to remain in peace in a New York jail and thus avoid testifying before the U.S. Senate committee investigating interstate crime. He won at least a temporary respite from testifying. The state appeals court reserved decision on his plea that the committee had no authority to uproot him from the Rikers Island jail, where he's serving a state-imposed 2-year term for bookmaking. 2 Senate committees reported yesterday that Russia and her satellites have nearly 5 million men under arms, while Atlantic Pact nations have armed forces now totaling about 4.5 million men. The report, prepared by the Senate Foreign Relations and Armed Services Committees, believed to be the first official data of its kind. It was made public on the eve of joint hearings by the 2 groups on sending additional U.S. troops to Europe. The latest addition to frozen food counters throughout the country is a pre-baked waffle. Just pop it into a toaster and it pops up ready to eat in 1 minute flat. 6 frozen waffles of standard size packed in each cellophane-wrapped box. They can be stored in the freezer unit of home refrigerators for as long as a month. And the Reverend James E. Smith of Carbondale, Illinois, who says he'll be 102 years old on March 16th, has become a father again. A son, Dallas, born last Friday, the 7th of his children. Their mother is 38. Records of the American Medical Association in Chicago showed a 94-year-old man fathered a child in the 1930s. And those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Thursday, February 15th, 1951. On your radio 71 years ago, Father Knows Best, the conclusion of which comes up next on this Tuesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
Are you suffering with arthritis or osteoporosis? Do you have diabetes? Did you know that these are just 2 of the hundreds of diseases that have seen improvement with Dr. Wallach's incredible longevity products? You can't get them at a health food store. The only way to get them is to call us at 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Do you have heart disease, fibromyalgia, or high blood pressure? Do you have a terrible time losing weight? Dr. Wallach can help. He was a veterinarian and cured diseases in animals. He felt that he could do the same for humans, so he became a physician. Over 50 years of research and helping people like you goes into every bottle of Dr. Wallach's amazing discoveries. Do you want to feel better? Learn how to treat the cause of your problem rather than covering up the symptoms with drugs. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065.
Crime drama on Wednesday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Sidney Greenstreet stars in The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe from February 16, 1951, and The Case of the Party for Death. That'll be coming up on Wednesday, but right now let's wrap up Father Knows Best with Robert Young from 71 years ago, February 15, 1951.
It's 5 o'clock, an hour of mystery and excitement. How do I know? Well, I know many things. Of men who walk by night, with danger by their side. Of men who walk by eventide, with orchids clutched beneath their arms. Ah, yes, Jim. There's a smile on your face and a song in your heart as you stride across the kitchen floor. But how long will this happiness last? You open the refrigerator door, and the smile fades, the song disappears. What is it you see, Jim? crisp and cool between a head of lettuce and an old, tired meatloaf. That's right, Jim. It's another orchid.
Now, how did that get there? I told Joe I was going to pick it up. Why would he... Margaret! Try to surprise anybody around here. Honey? Margaret!
Is that you, Father?
No, it's the Iceman.
Mother isn't home yet.
Was that for me or the Iceman?
We're in the living room, Daddy.
Well, at least that worked out all right. Where's your mother?
She hasn't gotten back from downtown yet. Daddy, we've got a surprise for you. Guess what?
You burned down the school.
Daddy. Father, I don't know how to tell you this.
Just a minute. Do you know anything about that orchid in the icebox?
Well, that's what I was trying to tell you. We bought it.
You bought an orchid?
Uh-huh.
What for?
For Mother.
Oh, Betty.
Well, you said you wouldn't, and we didn't want her to be the only mother in Springfield without an orchid.
Betty, I never said I wouldn't.
Why, Father, when we were having breakfast this morning...
I never said I wouldn't buy an orchid. You must know I was the first... Oh, never mind. I ordered an orchid for your mother over a week ago.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Oh, jumping creepers. And I didn't even have my hair done. And I only got 9 Valentines.
Well, that makes sense. Not to me, but it makes sense, I suppose.
We gave Bud all our money, and he bought the orchid for Mother.
Fine, now she can have one for each shoulder.
Father, why didn't you tell us?
Because I didn't think it was any of your business. What's the matter with you?
I want my 75 cents back.
Kathy, stop that yowling, or I'll give you something to yowl about.
Yes, Daddy.
This isn't just a question of the money involved. The two of you and Bud probably sacrificed a great deal to buy that orchid for your mother, and it was absolutely unnecessary.
I have to go to the dance looking like an old witch.
Well, stop worrying about your hair. It looks fine.
We only bought the orchid because we love Mommy.
That's what I mean. Why should you presume that you love her more than I do?
We don't, Father. We just...
But that's what you said. Father doesn't love Mother enough to buy her an orchid, so we'll have to.
We never thought of it like that.
Do you think I'd have let your mother down when everybody else was getting an orchid?
No.
Then why didn't you trust me?
Because we're stupid?
No, because you didn't think, that's all.
Father.
Yes, Betty?
Does my hair really look all right?
That's fine. I make a big speech about faith and confidence. You want to know if your hair is all right.
Daddy.
What is it, Kathy?
I trust you.
That's very nice.
Do you trust me?
As far as I can throw the piano. Doorbell rang.
Because if you do, Betty took my 75 cents, and I'd like to make a deal about my allowance.
Answer the door, and when you come back, we'll sit down and talk about something else.
Okay, What?
Answer the door.
I said I'd like to make a deal. And he said... Father.
Yes, Betty?
Will it help any if I say I'm sorry?
How much of this orchid money was yours?
$5.
Well, I guess you've suffered enough. Suppose we just forget the whole thing.
Hello, Kathy. Is your father home?
Daddy, it's Mr. Davis.
Oh, come on in, Ed.
Jim, I'm in an awful jam.
What's the matter?
You don't know what I've been through. I've turned this town upside down, and I can't find an orchid.
I thought you were getting one from Joe.
He's sold out. Everybody's sold out. I'm afraid to go home.
Father.
Yes, Becky. I had the same idea. Kathy!
You want me, Daddy?
Now be a good girl and bring me those 2 boxes in the refrigerator.
Okay. Father, isn't it wonderful?
Isn't what wonderful?
Now sit down, Ed. Take it easy. Relax.
Relax, he says. My wife will probably leave for Reno in the morning, and he says relax.
Couldn't find any orchids anywhere, huh?
Orchids. 1 orchid, that's all I wanted.
You don't say.
Jim, will you please take that silly-looking grin off your face? You don't seem to understand. I'm in trouble. I can't go home.
Kathy!
I'm coming, Daddy.
Ed, whether you know it or not, we are living in an age of miracles. The skyscraper, the airplane, the horseless carriage,
Jim.
and now miracle of miracles.
Are these the ones?
There you are, Ed.
What?
Orchids. You mean real live orchids? Just ran them up out of a couple of old lampshades. Take your pick.
Jim, I don't know what to say.
Well, suppose you start with, here you are, girls. Here's your $7.50.
I'll give them 10.
Father! Daddy!
$7.50 will be fine, Ed. Won't it, girls?
Yes, Father. I'll settle for my 75 cents back.
Jim, I really don't know what to say. You know you saved my life, don't you?
Well, you know how it is. We always like to keep a couple of spare orchids floating around the house. Gives it that homey touch.
Here you are, girls. $7.50, and I'll never be able to thank you enough. Margaret?
It's me, Dad.
I'm going to get out of here before you change your mind. Anytime I can do anything for you, Jim, just let me know.
See you later, Ed.
Hiya, bud.
Hello, Mr. Davis.
Oh, what a day. What a day.
What's he so excited about?
Oh, he was just... Bud, what's in the box?
The box? Oh, it's an orchid.
A what?
Bud!
Didn't you tell me to buy an orchid?
I want my 75 cents back.
Now, wait a minute. Didn't you put an orchid in the icebox before?
I just got home, remember?
Betty, you told me...
Well, I thought that was the orchid we bought.
What was?
The one we just sold to Mr. Davis.
I didn't put any orchids in the icebox. I bought this one from Joe this morning.
There's something very fishy going on around here.
I didn't do anything.
We bought 2 orchids, we sold 1, and we've still got 2 left. It doesn't add.
Maybe the florist made a mistake.
I guess the best thing to do is call Joe and find out if he knows anything about it.
Won't I get my 75 cents back?
Stop worrying about your 75 cents.
But I need it. Kathy, leave Father alone. He's having enough trouble.
Hey, do we get our money back?
Wait until we find out.
Boy, would that be something.
Hello, Joe?
Dad, ask him if we get the money back.
Just a minute, Joe. Bud.
Yes, Dad?
Go away.
But aren't you going to ask him?
I said go away.
How would it be if I just shut up?
All right. Hello, Joe.
Oh, shut up.
Joe, this is Jim Anderson. Did you send an orchid out to my house? I know I ordered one, but I picked it up myself less than half an hour ago. I see.
What'd he say, Father? Who, Betty?
Well, I imagine you must be. Who?
What'd he say, Father? Who, Betty?
Just a minute, Joe. Betty, in just one more minute.
Oh, I'm sorry, Father. Go ahead.
This is like trying to out-talk a riveting machine. Joe?
I didn't say anything.
But if you don't... No, I was talking to my kids, Joe. Bill Polder? He didn't get one, huh? Okay, I'll send Bud over with it right away. Not at all, Joe. See you later. Well, that takes care of that.
What'd he say, Father?
Joe thinks they made a mistake while he was out to lunch.
Who did?
They did.
Oh.
But take your orchid across the street to the Poulters.
What for?
For Mr. Poulter to give to Mrs. Poulter.
What do I want to do that for?
Because that's what Joe said to do.
And then I get my money back?
Yes.
Hot dog. I'll be back in 2 minutes, Dad.
See if you can't take a little longer, like an hour.
Okay.
Betty, the next time you start anything like this, so help me, I'll...
Divorce her? Kathy.
That's exactly what I'll do. I'll divorce her.
You'll divorce who?
Mommy. Hello, Mother.
Hello, honey. We didn't hear you come in.
I came in the back way. Hello, dear.
Hello, John.
Who's going to get a divorce?
Betty and I.
Oh, well, you've certainly got a nice day for it.
Haven't we, though?
Daddy, show her the surprise. Kathy. Well, what are we waiting for?
Betty, she's absolutely right.
Just because I'm the littlest one in the family, everybody thinks I am?
Jim, would you mind telling me what this is all about? I've got to get dinner started.
I'll do better than tell you, honey. I'll show you what it's all about. There you are.
Jim, did you take that orchid out of the icebox?
Oh, you saw it, huh?
Of course I saw it. Kathy, put it back where it was, like a good girl.
Yes, Mommy.
Well, aren't you going to say something?
It'll be absolutely ruined before Betty even has a chance to wear it.
Me?
What's Betty got to do with it?
Well, I thought you knew. That's the orchid Billy Smith brought for Betty to wear to the sweetheart ball.
Oh, no.
Tomorrow or Saturday, you'll be buying the coffee you'll serve all next week. And for your family's pleasure, you'll want the coffee that gives the most in flavor for your money. So take home the one coffee with the world's most famous flavor, our Maxwell House coffee. That's Maxwell House coffee. Always good to the last drop. Once again, it's breakfast time in Springfield. And once again, we find the Andersons engaged in their favorite occupation. Yep, they're eating again, like this.
Oh, it was wonderful, Mother. Just the most wonderful dance you've ever seen. May I please have the sugar? 9 Valentines isn't bad, is it, Daddy?
I think it's very good.
And I've still got my 75 cents. That's even better.
Margaret, do you suppose Hetty Green looked anything like Kathy when she was a child?
I wouldn't know, dear.
Before your time?
1 or 2 days. More coffee?
Why, sure.
There you are.
Thank you.
Boy, was Mr. Poulter ever excited about the orchid. He gave me a whole $1 for a tip.
Bud, you didn't take money from Mr. Poulter.
I didn't? I could have sworn I did.
Bud.
Well, it turned out to be a pretty fine Valentine Day after all, didn't it?
It was wonderful, dear. And I certainly think you showed great originality.
I did, huh?
Mm-hmm. I'll bet that's the biggest box of candy anyone ever got.
May I have the cream, please?
Here you are, Father.
Thank you.
Join us again next week when we'll be back with Father Knows Best, starring Robert Young as Jim Anderson, with Roy Bargy and the Maxwell House Orchestra. In our cast were Norma Jean Nielsen as Kathy, June Whitley, Rhoda Williams, Ted Donaldson, Barney Phillips, and yours truly, Bill Foreman. So until next Thursday, good night and good luck from the makers of Maxwell House, America's favorite brand of coffee. Always good to the last drop. Father Knows Best was transcribed in Hollywood and written by Ed James. Now stay tuned in for Dragnet, which follows immediately over most of these stations.
February 15th, 1951, Father Knows Best on Classic Radio Theater. I mentioned at the bottom of the hour that Ted over at RadioMemories.com has a whole bunch of episodes of Father Knows Best available in pristine quality, and you can get them by going to RadioMemories.com. You can get them on cassette, CD, or flash drive. So if you are not internet connected, contact us here and we will try to get you hooked up with RadioMemories.com. Please thank this radio station, support their advertisers, their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time we roll around. Don't forget that our shows are available through our webpage, classicradio.stream, where you can stream our shows on demand, learn more about classic radio collecting, find all of our social media contacts, and you can also contact me there, classicradio.stream. Our shows are available just about anywhere you can find podcasts, including YouTube, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker. Just search for Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Have a great day, and please tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on your dial. Classic Radio Theater on your favorite radio station.